There is one 5-minute call remaining. David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to take a little bit of a different tack from what we've heard in this debate so far and just go through some basics of what actually the farming community involves. And farming is a capital business. People spend their whole lives building up enough equity so that they can buy their own farm. They work hard in share milking, they do the long hours, they put that hard work in. And it is one of the most competitive businesses in New Zealand, if not the most. And it is probably the most competitive farming business in the world. And New Zealand farmers pride themselves on the ability to farm efficiently and without government subsidy to the highest levels in the world, the highest levels of standards of product produced and the highest levels of economic efficiency. They are the best. And they are the best because they compete on an open market. They do not have a market that is dictated by government. The prices received for agricultural products are the prices in the world market. The prices that they pay for the inputs for their products that they produce are world market prices. You cannot distort that market in any way or you will lose the efficiency of the New Zealand agricultural system. You cannot go out there, this Parliament or this country or the world cannot go out there and distort market prices. Nobody has that power. And yet the opposition asks us to distort the market prices of land, assuming for one moment that their theory of land acquisition would have any effect on market price. That is not the case. You do not see the Chinese coming and offering extortionate amounts of money for that land. If it was a land grab and they've got $2 trillion like the Green Party says, they would be offering a lot more money. That's not the case. And if you make those limitations, this Parliament will effectively hamstring New Zealand's biggest industry because you will create a different economic advantage or a disadvantage for them because the industry will not be operating in the manner that it is accustomed and that it has made it so strong. And the other thing I want to talk about today is that when we look at the agricultural industry, and especially the dairy industry, we need to look at it in the context of the supply chain. And it's not just about land. There's also the manufacturing side that's the level above land. And I guess the great fear, and I think the only thing the Green Party could ever say that had any relevance, was that if New Zealand product actually went into those Asian markets and had the New Zealand name on it, the New Zealand brand, but wasn't actually New Zealand milk, or had a hybrid of New Zealand and other countries' milk put together, then you would be worried, because our brand is so important. And the possibility of losing that brand control through selling our manufacturing sites is probably the bigger risk for New Zealand than the sale of the land. That land will produce milk. That milk will be produced, it will be manufactured into products in New Zealand. The Chinese aren't talking about piping that milk to a boat at Tauranga Harbour and sending that over to China to process. They want to process it here just like any New Zealand farmer would do. The real danger for New Zealand farmers and the New Zealand brand is if we don't control that link from when we get a produced product in New Zealand to when it's sold in the shelves of Shanghai. And that is the real danger, and that is something that this Parliament should probably address in the future. That is contrary, though, to what the Labor Party has said. The Labor Party said it's okay to sell that part, but we just don't want to sell the land part. And we've got to probably address how we have that brand recognition and maintain control of that brand. We've heard from many speakers about how the Labor and Party sold a lot of land in their time, and that's true. And they say they've learnt from it. But I think we need to be very careful about the real issues here. The real issue is that we have the best agricultural industry in the world. We should not distort that by making rules in this House which will not be effective in the first instance, and secondly will distort that market. And the second thing we need to be very careful about is making sure that we actually look at the real issues. And the real issue isn't who owns that piece of land. The real issue is the product and the branding of that represents New Zealand when it goes into market, because that's the real risk. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to take into account some real issues, not some rhetoric.
The time for this debate having now elapsed, I call on Government Orders of the Day numbers 1 and 2.